it's not just your brand, but there's a lot of stuff which goes into it. What made you really start this, Sabah?
So to be very honest, Reen, 20 years of corporate life, 20 years of working across advertising, digital, mainline, media, all of it. And then after you achieve something, you become MDs and EVPs of companies, you realize, what's next?
Certain companies, you just love working there. When you're part of that company, the kind of environment, the go-getter spirit, you're not achieving things day by day.
See, as a company, what you have to do is there's only one focus. That goal, that vision is one.
Yeah.
Profitability.
Correct.
And growth.
Hi guys. Today we have with us a special guest, Sabah Iqbal. Sabah Iqbal, I am very pleased and quite grateful to Sabah. Sabah was very gracious to give me my one of the reviews of my book.
It was a pleasure.
And when I really met Sabah and her partner Sumitra, I think I realized the warmth that you all bring, and because you all are from the corporate sector. So guys, Sabah and Sumitra together are the co-founders of Semeion Consulting. They are a branding and marketing firm, and they define businesses and they help businesses create their own brand value. And there's something that I would like to also share, that Sabah and Sumitra have also helped me, guys. And when you start a business, you always want to create that little extra, that something which people will recall, people are going to talk about your brand even when you're not around. And that impact that you leave, it's not just your brand, but there's a lot of stuff which goes into it. What made you really start this, Sabah?
So to be very honest, Reen, 20 years of corporate life, 20 years of working across advertising, digital, mainline, media, all of it. And then after you achieve something, you become MDs and EVPs of companies, you realize, what's next? And I think there's that certain sense of, what are we doing at the end of the day? The higher you go up the ladder, and yes, I know we are women and there's supposed to be a glass ceiling, and then there's a glass cliff that women go through. But the fact is, when you go up there, people or your team just ends up becoming a number. And that is something that you're not comfortable with, You're trying to just chase.
You think is it more difficult for a woman, or is it something that I think men also go through?
I think men also go through it. Anyone who has probably a sense of purpose and a conscious does find it very, very difficult to look at people as very, very dispensable commodities. To look at the brands that we are partnering, to do an honest day's work. You have to make sure, what are we going to leave behind?
Correct.
What's a leave behind at the end of the day? Yes, MD of a company, great. Once you quit your job, no one's going to remember you after that.
Seriously, I will tell you, I think this was something which actually blew my mind, all right? My first company where I worked as an HR, so I have prior experience of 6-7 years in different fields, and I struggled, and my failures, and people who will read my book, you will realize that multiple failures, and always starting my life I think I would always associate my life starting from zero, then starting all over again, and then coming back to zero. So this has happened so many times, but HR gave me my first identity. And I was really happy in Kotak Securities, and I think the friends I made there, we literally were, colleagues to friends.
Correct.
And there was so much happiness in me that I belong, I have this community of people, and somebody, I really respect her. I mean, her name is Rehmat, okay? She was my colleague in Kotak, and she was also someone that I treated like a friend. She was very, very close to me, and some way she was like my Guru Maiya in the company, okay? I would go to her for everything. She told me, she quit the company a year before I quit, year and a half. And she told me, she says, you know what, when you leave the company, all these people around you are not going to even ask you again.
Correct.
And I said, no, I disagree. I don't think this is right. We are spending 10, 12 hours every day, and this is how, I mean, we are close to them, and I kind of disagreed with her. And I realized later on that she was so
Absolutely
right.
Because see, as a company, what you have to do is there's only one focus. That goal, that vision is one.
Yeah.
Profitability.
Correct.
And growth.
Huh.
So whether you are walking over people or you're throwing them under the bus, it doesn't matter. And because that's a company goal.
Right.
And it's always, culture is always going to come top down. We're working for multinationals. The person who probably started that company doesn't
Correct.
even exist anymore.
No, they're not
That
around. That's why it's a
ethos-
limited company,
Correct.
right?
The ethos, whatever they started off with,
right.
that probably got buried with them.
Correct.
So the only thing that is left behind for that company to survive and survive and survive is growth. It's numbers, it's profitability.
The bottom line, the
It is
red or the black,
looking
and that's
at
it.
people as commodities, as dispensable commodities. A company is not going to care that some person has worked for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades.
Correct.
Also.
Right.
Because everyone knows at the end of the day, after working for 2 decades in a company, what are you going to get? A watch and a shawl.
Yeah, a long service award.
Or a long service award.
Yeah, that's going to be that one trophy and that one certificate which will just stay somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are you going to be known for after that?
Exactly.
What are you going to be known for after that? Have you lived a complete life? Have you left behind something to be remembered by? Yes. Johnson & Johnson, one of the most respected companies, has that board in their offices at Forget Street, but they are their old office. I used to love going there, and I would see this board that had people who had served for 30 years, 20 years, 25 years. But guess what happened? The minute Johnson & Johnson moved to another swankier office at JBLR, that board was gone.
Yeah.
So all those people who left their legacy on their wall, and those walls,
where are they now?
those walls have crumbled.
They've crumbled.
So the legacies have crumbled.
No, and not just the walls have crumbled and those people, that board has gone away, but look at the values that company is now living with.
Correct.
So we've actually had so many controversies happening, and there are sort of product issues and stuff like that. Where is that original value that people
Because
actually were living by?
Bottom line. The problem is the bottom line.
Yeah.
And it's so sad because it's a great company. It has a great ethos when I worked with them, but it doesn't exist anymore. Why? Because those people left, and that's what happens with larger multinationals.
It does. No, even with me, because certain companies, you just love working there. When you're part of that company, the kind of environment, the go-getter spirit, you're not achieving things day by day. The company might have other, demands or whatever, but the role that you have is so exciting. You're creating things every day, and that makes so much of a difference. But believe me, even after doing that, I've worked for days when, I was in the company, I used to be the last one to leave my department. That has happened with me so often. I have this sense of responsibility. It's my work. This is what I have to do. But you leave a company, there is a legacy. Yes, okay, so and so, she's done this, she's done that. Afterwards, what? 6 months after you quit a company, you go back there. You'll have those 3 people, 5 people, 10 people coming and meeting you, and they'll say, oh, you know what? That SOP has your name. So what have you really left? What have you really created for yourself?
I'll tell you what. The thing is, while yes, on the face of it, we work for companies, but think about it. People work for people. People work with people.
Yeah.
You have a lot of companies that have seen a great decade.
Yes.
Okay. Why? Because they had probably the best of people. And as people, they just gelled.
They gelled, correct.
And when those people move out or they disperse into the various other companies, suddenly you feel like the soul of that company is no more. It's the same company. They are chasing the same thing, which is monies at the end of the day. Probably those people who were there that made it feel like home were struggling at that time, hated every day of it, kept complaining, but it was because we were all in it together. We were in the trenches together, fighting it out every day.
Correct.
And we genuinely had great respect and fondness for our colleagues. And that is what made it worthwhile. It's always the people. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to remember saying, hey, you know what? This company gave me this fantastic paycheck. what you're going to remember is that crazy night when we had this crazy pitch and this crazy copywriter of mine just broke into an improv to dance.
Correct.
That is the moment, and that moment is not with a company, that moment is with another human being.
People.
It's people. We work for people and we work with people.
Exactly my point. You know, I mean, those days that I actually remember, you know, so obviously I was in HR and our performance appraisals would take place. You know, there was a time where it was all physical. So the letters had to be sent, you know, 3 days in advance. Correct. So we actually remember, you know, we would take over certain cabins of the company, like the MD's cabin, and this cabin had to be confidential. And all of us are like, they're sorting out, okay, like literally, you know, stacks and stacks of paper and, you know, folding it in a certain manner and, you know, doing that. This was before the digital letters came in and stuff like that. I remember those days, the camaraderie.
Moments, that's what I'm saying. These are moments that you create.
You create.
With your colleagues. If you're going to spend 12 hours in one place, whether you like it or you hate it, you are going to create that moment of little happiness. You know, the little chunk of happiness.
Correct.
You're gonna steal it for yourself, and that's what ends up happening when we are working these crazy corporate jobs where we are spending days and nights. We all seek happiness, right? So we will look for that silver lining. We're all positive people at the end of the day. We will find that silver lining. Even in that chaos, obviously at that moment it will feel like, what the hell is happening? I haven't slept in days. But today you will laugh.
Yeah.
It's a shared moment.
Exactly my point.
And you find your happiness in those moments.
No, I'll tell you what, there's one thing more which I tell people, you know. People have forgotten now. So I've also worked there. I worked, you know, and the best of my careers in HR and some companies where I would not like to name, but has been like, oh my God, what is happening? You know, something like that. But I've always created my own space. You know, any company I join, people would just tell me, you know, this is how we work here. That I think the minute you join a company, a new company, so 3 to 4 months, you just keep quiet and just observe what's happening. What is this circus like? But they'll always tell you, this is what is happening, this is what we're supposed to do. And I think the change that I really wanted to talk about here is, you know, and I think somewhere Evolvement does touch a lot upon, you know, those areas.
Okay.
If you don't have a vision for yourself, if you don't have your inner narrative of who you are, what you are, your voice is going to get lost in that crowd. So even I think Semeion Consulting, you know, you're consulting, you'll actually give a voice to that company, you'll give that brand.
At the end of the day, you need to know what your brand is, your personal brand and your company's brand.
Correct.
It becomes very, very important because that is what you're going to let that person know. And we all remember how someone makes us feel. Okay?
Definitely.
Yes. We're having a conversation together. We'll have a great laugh together. You will remember this moment of, okay, this is how it felt.
Right.
This is how there was a smile or there was a chuckle or, you know, we both had a side joke which probably will not get caught on camera, you know. That's a moment that we create. That's an experience that we create.
Right.
Now, a brand which is not a person. It's not tangible. It's intangible.
Correct.
How can a brand give you that experience that makes you feel nice?
Yeah.
So when we talk about brands, what they're selling is not a product or a commodity. They're actually selling a feeling attached to it. Why do we buy an iPhone or an Apple product today? Because it gives us that feeling of premiumness, that feeling of I have probably arrived in life, or I'm seen a certain way, or I'm perceived a certain way, right?
Yeah.
You look at Nike.
Right.
Yes, they sell shoes.
Correct.
But what do they talk about? They talk about fitness. The minute you have a Nike app, right, you feel like you belong to someone who is into fitness and just health, overall health.
Right.
That is what we're selling. We're selling motivation.
Right.
Netflix is not only selling content, they are actually getting you habituated. They're competing with your sleep. You can always have the option to sleep. But why do we want to stay up and watch it? It is that brand is leaving you with a feeling and an emotion and an experience.
Let's not get into the side effects of that.
Correct.
But you know what? That's what I'm trying to say is, if you don't have your why, like I think, you know, Simon Sinek was the one who said, "Na start with why." Right. Believe me, you know,
it's actually why. So it's actually 3 whys and not just one.
Okay.
So you
there's
answer
three
the first why.
Yeah.
And say, okay, why? Then you go again, okay, again, why? And then it's actually when you ask the third why,
Right.
it gets really, really clear, because then you have an idea, then you try and just crystallize the idea,
Right.
and then you can actually put it in a word or a sentence. The reason why we say brand, what's your brand value proposition or
Right.
brand positioning, is if you can put it in a word or just a couple of words, it shows your clarity of how clear you are.
Correct. Which is something which you gave me. I just love that, because when people would ask me, what, now that you're a coach and you're a mentor and, a guide, and you're helping people to unblock the leadership quotient, and you just asked me one thing, and what is your demographic? And I remember telling you that, I have a wide demographic, because there are people who are not satisfied with their current career and there is stagnancy, but they want to achieve more.
Correct.
So professional elevation and all. And I remember you telling me, you don't have a demographic, you have a psychographic.
Yes.
I just loved that, and I could actually relate to it, because I felt there are so many people who are, they could be 25, 26 years old.
But they have the mindset.
They have the mindset, the maturity, and they say they know that this is where we want to go. We do not want to get stuck in the area of just survival. We want to really create something big for ourselves.
Because it's the clarity of thought.
Correct.
So the reason I told you don't have a demographic and you have a psychographic is because you need to have somebody who has that clarity. Yes, I may be stuck right now.
Right.
But even for you to unblock something,
right,
there is certain clarity that you need. If I need to unblock this, where do I need to head?
Right.
Am I ready to do that hard work? And I
Correct.
think when I had the privilege of reading your book, people just saying I read it before it was published, so I'm really, really privileged.
No, because I was, at that time, see, for me, when I was looking for reviews, I wasn't just looking at anyone giving me a review.
Correct.
I had to really respect the other person. So, my reviews, the one review which I got, the forward was with Alok Shiopurkar, the HR head for HDFC Asset Management, and another person, the review was given by my mentor, Ron Malhotra, and I also had a review by N.R. Subramanian. And he is someone who actually I hired in Kotak as the accounts and finance head.
Imagine.
So that our association goes back so way. I think it was 2007 or so, 7 or 8, where he joined Kotak, and I was the one hiring him.
Imagine.
Okay, and I've been in touch with Subbu for years and years, and he's someone I completely respect. There are some people, when you think of them, you just have this a smile comes on your face. I know I just met you like 4-5 months back, but you and Sumitra bring that smile on my face.
I think I'll tell you why, because we've probably done a lot of work ourselves. And the reason why there was a connect and we resonate so strongly with the book is because we've been through that journey. We've quit corporate jobs because we wanted to and it's a conscious decision.
Completely.
What do we want to be known for? We want to be known as the MD of this multinational company, or we want to be the actual leader. Because at the end of the day, the team will tell you how they feel. Do they feel supported? Do they feel understood? And that's what the style of leadership is right now changing. It's a lot of the softer aspects also. It's no more about you need to be the loudest voice in the room, you need to be the smartest person in the room. Actually, the sign of a great leader is hiring people who are way smarter than you. But not every leader is secure enough to do that. It takes a lot of internal work, a lot of self-acceptance to say, hey, you know what, I may be great at this, but there is this junior of mine who's actually fantastic at this, 1,000 times better.
I'll tell you, the mark of a great leader is not how great he is. It is the mark of how many people he can he can ignite their greatness.
Right. Think about it. If you actually think about it, teachers are the best leaders.
Yeah, correct.
They're the first set of leaders because they nurture the leaders of tomorrow.
Right.
And that is what today's leaders actually need to be. They need to be the actual mentors. Teachers, leading, you lead from behind.
Yeah.
An actual rock star or a superstar has the best rock stars and lets them take the center stage, lets them lead.
You know what? I'll tell you what. You now Ratan Tata has recently passed away, and the entire world is. See, he was always recognized as a leader. He was always revered, esteemed, and I think he created a mark for the Tata Empire. And he was obviously following the footsteps of some very, very great people. Right. So it was not like he was the first great, but yeah, Tata Empire is known for that greatness. But he took it to quite
another
a
level,
like
yes.
at a global level, and we all know what he did with Ford, and Ford was not helping him, and they were not buying that Nano, and he said, no, one day I will buy something, and that's what he did.
The Land Rover, yeah.
The Land Rover, and that's amazing. But my biggest experience about the Tata Empire actually happened. So years back, where I think 2012 or 13, I went to Della Adventures, at Lonavala.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. At Della, there was an offsite, by the way. That was the first time I went to Della. There was an offsite, and we were all there, whatever. And every room had a book on J.N. Tata. Alright, and it was called For the Love of India by R.M. Lala. I've mentioned in my book as well, I think whatever, but there was this, so I obviously, my mind I always knew about G.R.D. Tata, but somewhere I had not really realized the greatness of J.N. Tata, the founder of the Tata Empire. And that chapter in that book, I recommend, guys, everyone should read that book, by the way. I mean, For the Love of India, and it's about a biography on J.N. Tata by R.M. Lala. It's an amazing book, and thanks to Jimmy Mistry for keeping it there at the Della Adventures. That really blew my mind. That chapter in that book, the men that J.N. Tata built, imagine he created that legacy, but that legacy did not happen by just him saying, do this, do that. This is what you're supposed to do. He did not leave instructions. He left a vision.
It's a framework.
It's a framework.
And then you give them enough flexibility and freedom.
Correct.
To build it on their own.
Correct. And imagine so many of his initiatives actually happened post his death.
Absolutely.
They did not happen during his lifetime, but imagine the people after him also were so, and that's still happening.
That is because you have completely and totally aligned.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mr. Ratan Tata, right, his pet project, literally, we all know it's ready to launch, right? The small animal hospital.
Right.
It is definitely going to be a fantastic success because the man has led. He has led not only a great conglomerate of companies, but he's also led humanity.
Yeah.
Just look at it. We all mourned.
Right.
His death, not just because he's someone great and this thing, but we all felt it at a personal level.
Correct.
Because of the little lessons, the life lessons he's taught us.
26/11 when it happened, I mean, and obviously I was at that time, I was working in Kotak and stuff like that. I really cannot forget the images of when Taj was burning, and Ratan Tata was just standing stoically opposite near Gateway of India, and he was watching it. The kind of feeling that was coming, I mean, I knew what was happening inside him. I mean, I can't reach the degree to what, but Taj was something that every Indian feels very proud of. And it was like that was his legacy, and also J.N. Tata created that and everything. And I could just imagine, and he's like stoically watching, and I think that was resolved in his mind that it's going to come back to what it was.
Right. And I think he was more worried about the people at that time. I don't think he really gave a damn about property,
and the people have been
only cared about the people, and think that was insane. And
insane.
I'm glad we're talking about Mr. Tata because I think as he epitomizes what an evolved, conscious, well-rounded leader is.
Yes.
Of course, he's shown us the way for growth, having a growth mindset, being very, very clear, being a go-getter, being an achiever.
Correct.
But he's also showed us the other aspects of it. The way he would prioritize people, the way he would prioritize his pets.
You know that what was that incident where he did not go to London?
Yes. So
That-
obviously
yeah.
to now King Charles, then Prince Charles,
Huh.
wanted to felicitate him and give him a lifetime achievement award. And one of his doggoos took ill, and Mr. Tata goes, "I'm sorry, I'm going to be there with my child.
Right.
So I will have to skip this."
Imagine.
Okay,
and that is the
that
greatness
is
of
his-
the guy's priorities were correct.
His priorities, and anyone I think who's lived in Colaba or is a South Bombay person knows that his bungalow, we still call it fondly as the lighthouse. It's
Wow.
called the lighthouse for all stray animals.
Wow.
Always welcomed, always fed, always, well looked after. It's literally called the lighthouse. So the fact that you can be soft, at the same time be very, very firm and resilient in what you want to actually do and achieve.
This only happens if your inner vision is clear. There's an inner strength which happens. Like I'll tell you what. There's this very very famous thing which one of the very main things which I do with people initially. When they come to me, they're only talking about, no, I want to get a better job, I want to get a better salary, or I would like my life to be a little more peaceful, or their goals
all
are
the
very
materialistic,
simple,
yeah.
materialistic goals, very simple goals. I actually take them through something which I've created, which is called the success, their success point. Okay, what do you think success really means to you? And believe me, when people do that, they realize that this was never success for them. Their success is at least 25 levels above that, but they've never even gone for it, And so for me, evolvement is not just spiritual. Okay, you're evolving, and anyone who just thinks it's a spiritual book, sorry, that's
Actually,
not going to be the case.
I will set the record straight.
Yeah.
It is not a spiritual book. It is a practical book. I think the beauty of reading, and when I read the book, was it is so practical that you can imbibe it and imply it in every aspect of your life. It literally works as a go-to guide. Like the way we all grew up on a dictionary.
Correct.
Why did we go to a dictionary? Because it was so practical.
Correct.
It was obviously knowledgeable, but it was still practical. It was not spiritual. So I honestly would compare your book almost to the dictionaries of the Renan Martins of the world that we grew up on, where it is practical. It is what is required today. We need to do the inner work. We need to face our limitations, our demons. We need to be self-aware, because only when you're aware of yourself, it's self-awareness. Only when you're aware of yourself is when you know what you bring to the table. It's know what you want to achieve, how to achieve it in the right way, and you appreciate the people who are going to be a part of that journey, because no man is an island at the end of the day, right?
Obviously.
We live in a society and we have to coexist. It makes life so much easier and well-rounded when
And
we're
not creating problems for others. You're not just going to succeed alone in isolation. Correct. I think
There's this beautiful quote I'm going to quote, okay? If you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to walk far, walk together.
Walk together.
And
I think even Ratan Tata is associated with some of those quotes. I think today we are, I know somewhere
it's subconsciously, yes,
subconsciously
very much
we
there.
are kind of because leadership is leadership. We're celebrating his life, we're celebrating his thoughts. We're also celebrating how he never really he was running a business, obviously he is the head of a conglomerate, but for him it was not just business. There was a lot, much more which was happening, and that legacy is shining through.
See, I think that's the difference, right? Every time we use the word legacy, it's not about making a great name for yourself or making great money for yourself, right? It is the legacy. And if you look at it, your leave behind in life is what? It's your legacy.
Yeah.
No one's going to probably remember any of us in 100 years, right?
Exactly.
By the time the 5th generation hits Mother Earth, no one's going to remember anyone. But how do you leave a legacy behind?
Wow.
And for that legacy, it's not going to just take ambition or drive, but it's also going to take how you make people feel.
Yeah.
How you actually complete that circle, the soft skills and the hard skills have to go hand in hand. Yes, you have to have a growth mindset.
Correct.
On the one hand, but you should also be able to appreciate slow growth, because you're going to have days which are going to be a little slowish, a little sluggish, and you have to embrace them and enjoy them as well.
Yeah, obviously.
Because they recharge you for those crazy hectic days that you're going to have. You understanding what I'm saying, right? And I think which is why that balance that you had in your book, because on the one hand, of course, we're talking a lot about the inner works that need to be done, but at the same time, there are enough and more examples that are thrown in which are very, very relevant, which are very, very today.
20 years of experience.
See, that's what happens, right? And it is 20 years of varied kind of experiences. It is 20 years of meeting very, very different people. As an HR person, it is your job. You don't have an option. At least, in other departments, we can throw some problem at the HR and be like, hey, human, deal with it, But you don't have that option, so you have to deal with people, be politically correct.
More than 300 people would have coached as of now. And when I look at all of them, all leaders. They come back to me, people, who have joined a certain company as an intern and they've come in, and I see them now, each one of them, they are, when they talk to me, you see their glow. This is what you did for me. This is what I achieved.
It's actually so beautiful, when you get that.
Lovely.
Because I still get messages from some of my ex-team members, and they just randomly send me stuff and go like, hey, you know what? This reminded me of you, or I just got the bestest and the biggest appraisal of my life, and I want to thank you. And I'm like, wait, darling, you worked with me 5 years ago. Why are you thanking me today for an appraisal you have achieved today? It's all you, And they're like, no, you had taught me this, you had told me this. And I keep remembering that, and I think that is so satisfying. That's more satisfying than any paycheck I've ever received.
This is the soft skills of leadership. Exactly what we were talking here.
Totally right. It's how you make people feel. It's what they learn from you, what they remember you by.
Lovely. I remember I just recently heard something. I forgot now who was saying this. He said, okay, this was Javed Akhtar, by the way. I was listening to an interview of Javed Akhtar, and he said, the first person to ever start something is always going to be negated by the world. Everyone who comes first is always going to be said that what is this, what are you doing? Okay, it's always a second person who will be say, okay, he's following that. So people who are the first of anything, and somewhere I really wanted some people, to have with this book, with Evolvement, I wanted them to place themselves first. I wanted them to say, okay, what is it that you are really standing for? What do you, what your success means to you? What your evolvement means to you? Please do not follow things blindly. Just because someone is doing something, you're doing something, it has to come from within.
I'll tell you, I think what my reading of this honestly is that a lot of people feel that there is a certain blueprint that we were all given, right? And we've all, through conditioning, grown up to that.
Right.
You're born, you study till a certain age, you start working, you get married, you have a family, you achieve XYZ, and then that's it. But then every now and then there are people who are the misnomers, or the black sheeps, what we were known for. And today we started calling them the colorful sheep or the rainbow sheep of the family, because they strike out, they set out to do...
A good word, the outriders.
The outriders, They do something different. They do something what we call hatke.
Hatke.
Okay, and yes, initially we frown, now we make fun of them and we go like, ye kya hai? It's just a fad that will be there today and probably will be gone tomorrow.
Right.
And, let's ignore that. But when it becomes successful, or when you see them enjoying themselves, then you feel like, damn it, I want to now join that party. I want to now join that club. And I think that is becoming very, very important, and especially thanks to COVID. I think the pandemic was honestly a blessing in disguise, because it was, I think, the biggest reality check we all needed. And a lot of us have happily forgotten because the human mind is conditioned that way. But it is very, very important for all of us to keep taking stock from time to time of what is it that gives us joy, what is it that makes us happy, what is it that we want to do. We all have a purpose.
Correct.
We all have a purpose and we all want to leave a mark, whether it is a brand leaving a mark and an association with a color, like if I say what is yellow and has arches, you'll instantly tell me McDonald's, right? That's the mark that brand. Because
No, and it's not just people, sorry for cutting you in, but it's not, I would like to just kind of add here, it's not just people who are entrepreneurs starting something new, it is also people who are in certain companies.
But they're just changing the way the company has to operate.
They change things out, they are, they bring their own flair and their own value to the company, to that role that they're always remembered. Like I know so many people that, I loved working with them. For me, that person brought that flair to the job. Every day was a joy just to go and work with them.
Because what they do is they know what they want to do. They know what brings them happiness and joy.
Right.
And they just follow that path.
Correct.
The fact is, a lot of us are actually too shy or too scared to have conversations with ourselves.
Right.
Let's be honest, a lot of us sing, a lot of us actually talk to ourselves, but we just don't admit it. And you'll suddenly, be driving and you're talking to yourself, and you look next and you see the other person is actually also busy talking to themselves. And I think it's a beautiful thing to do, because that voice in your head, a lot of us go like, no, shut that voice in your head, shut that voice in your head.
No, but you can't.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Embrace that voice in your head and channelize that voice in your head where you say, hey, what do I actually like doing? Do I want to do this today? Do I want to do that today? What is it that I can do differently? Yes, we cannot change a lot of the environments in our workplaces, but we can definitely make it better.
No, and also embrace the differences. I think somewhere we try to create everyone as a clone. And if you see what people are doing right now, there is again, like the blueprint which people create, there are clones happening. And someone who's not defining themselves as per that blueprint, you're like, oh, what is he doing? Or, unless they become highly successful. And, Sukhdev Virdi had come for my podcast and he said, it took me 20 years of struggle to become an overnight sensation.
Yes.
So I just love that about
him.
I
think the thing is, a lot of times, and I do remember, saying this many, many times to some of my team members also. I say, never judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. Okay, we all have very, very different talents, and everyone has their strengths and their weaknesses, and you need all sorts to make it work.
Correct.
To make a ship go forward. Right. If everyone wants to be the captain of the ship and nobody else is playing any other role, that ship is not going to move forward. It's going to be docked over there and everyone's going to be just fighting and fighting and fighting. But each of us, if we take that responsibility and say, hey, I own this, I lead this aspect
Correct.
of my duty at the ship.
Right.
You are a leader. You are a leader. A designation does not define a leader. Let's be honest. Just because you may be a CEO or the MD of a company, that doesn't define leadership. The fact that you are leading a philosophy also, or just a different way of looking at things, and then you'll have people who will agree to you, maybe you'll have people who will not agree.
Correct.
You lead yourself first you lead yourself. Lead yourself into happiness, lead yourself into the different way of working, or just doing something different.
When Evolvement was, this entire concept was, by the way, it took 6 years to get downloaded. So I always write, it was not written by me but through me, and my 25 years of experiences were making me ready to write it, ready to download. So there was a lot happening, whatever. But when I literally realized that somewhere that I am different, even among all the people who I was working with and stuff, and there were people who I started talking about it, and then people kept coming to me for coaching and say, we want to sit with you, and whatever, can you help us through that or stuff like that. And we kind of had that. But with Evolvement, I realized that when you embrace this new you, when you say, no, I am going to evolve, I am going to find the inner me that I am happy with. When you start creating that about yourself, and now like no one can today tell me, okay, you can, I mean, somebody just comes to me and says, oh, you know, you're stupid, or you know, you're ugly, or you're something like that, you're rude. No. It's like, I am not going to believe you because I know who I am. Currently, people are not aware of who they are.
See, like we say, right? A rose by any other name is still a rose.
Exactly.
Just rose needs to know that it is a rose, right? And
right.
I think for me, what was very, very interesting, and the reason why I just like got drawn to it was because of the word evolvement. A lot of times, you know, you have a lot of coaches out there, whether it's a leadership coach or a manifestation coach or an abundance coach. You know, there are all sorts of coaches.
Success coaches.
Yes,
and
there
stuff.
are all sorts of coaches out there, and there are all sorts of things for people to latch on to. And it almost talks about, you know, a transformation. But when you say evolvement, it basically is you are maybe here, you decide where you evolve, right? Everyone's path is different. A circular wheel can work beautifully on a straight ground, but if I give you a square wheel, and if I just give you a bumpy curved road, that bloody square wheel is going to go much further and more smoother than the circular wheel on that bumpy road. So everyone's path is different. Everyone's tools are different. Everyone's strengths are different.
Correct.
So I think the minute we just understand that this is my strength, this is my path, and this is how I'm going to go, you have to just lead yourself towards a better you. It's still you. It is just a better you, a more evolved you, a more self-aware you, and a you that knows where you want to go.
Yeah.
And you're happy with it because you're defining your happiness. Your happiness is not defined by that corner office or now the opposite of it, which is like a no cabin structure, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah,
There's a lot
correct.
of posturing happening out there.
Right.
But do you actually buy into that? Because you've grown up thinking, I want that corner office, I want that corner cabin.
That's what we've been told, that please, you have to aspire for that. You have to aspire to work for a big brand. You have to aspire for that fancy designation and that 5 BHK house. You know, we've been told that.
But it's simple, right? What does success look like?
Exactly. But
sleeping well at night.
No, success also is, you know, when I feel that peace inside of me. I don't feel the need to not be myself.
I think a lot of people who look at the pandemic with a positive viewpoint, I know we've lost a lot during the pandemic, but I think if we look at it from a positive standpoint of what it actually taught us, which we conveniently forgotten, are successful people today. It's literally given them a different perspective.
Correct.
And that is...
No, but so the pandemic also was a huge awakening for me. Because before the pandemic, you know, I was very happy in my corporate job. See, I was always, this was something which I loved doing, and I was on the side. I said, no, I will write a book or something. I never really thought I will, you know, not do a job for me. But somewhere, I think something changed during those 2 years of the pandemic. And 2022, I remember, I was like, is this really what I'm going to do all my life? You know,
I think it gave a lot of us a moment to just be. Just be, to have a conversation with self and just go like, hey, what does it amount to?
Correct.
What does all of this amount to?
Right.
What do these late nights, crazy hours, not sleeping, sacrificing, those moments with family amount to? During the pandemic, work for me was booming.
Right.
And there were days I would not see my mother's face while we were living in the same house.
Wow.
Because I was constantly at work.
Yeah.
Constantly working from my room, and she was constantly doing things in her thing. So we were just like, hey.
And working from home and not seeing your mother's face. And I think that is
what
is shocker.
Hits you and you go,
yeah.
Wait, to what end? Because yes, we're supposed to be stuck in the same house. But are we actually even spending time together? Because everyone was busy working, and there were people who unfortunately lost their livelihoods, right? And they had no work. But they were just sitting and they were just staring, and they were faced with such harsh realities of their life. And most people have come out of it. Some people are still struggling with it,
No, but I'll tell you what, something for me is what really made a difference for me, I think, and the change that I have seen in myself. I have seen so many of my colleagues, okay? I don't see them really aspiring for anything more. They only aspire to be in that job. They aspire, believe me, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. They aspire when they're going to turn 60, they're going to retire, and they say, after I retire, I am going to do this. After I leave my job, I will have a life. Okay, it's like,
I'm going to be very honest with you, being guilty of doing that.
Okay.
Sumitra and I always spoke about venturing out on our own.
Right.
And probably, starting something of our own.
Right.
But it was always like, hey, we'll wait till we turn 45. And then we will start something of our own. But the pandemic actually went like, wait, what if there is no 45? Why are we waiting for that day which may or may not come?
Right.
The time is now, the time is today. And we've actually quit. And we've done this because we realized that was our purpose. That's at the end of the day.
The purpose, the clarity, your vision, your balance. You know what? It's like you're growing, you have a child, all right? And you say, okay, people actually put off evolvement. Like when I talk about giving time for yourself, when I talk about, first evolving yourself from within, and because that's important, you unblock your own, those set boundaries that you have put across on yourself. Evolvement also doesn't just talk about just growth. It's unblocking things.
It is.
It's increasing your, your daira, your boundaries.
I think it's also about increasing your capacity to believe in yourself and take a punt on yourself.
Definitely. It's like, you have a child, all right, and you think that, okay, I don't need, I will become a mother, or I will mother my child, or I will be successful as a mother when my child is 21 years old and when he started to grow, when he's earning his own money. Can you really defer your own evolvement till then? Evolvement is going to happen day to day. The child that he or she becomes at 21 or 22 starts now.
Yeah, it's the foundation, the formative years.
Yeah, and you can't just say, okay, I will evolve only in my professional life, I will not evolve in my personal life, or vice versa. You cannot evolve,
just one aspect.
One aspect, because where is the balance going
it's
to
holistic.
be?
Like our diets are also supposed to be well balanced and well rounded. If you
Exactly.
just do a no carb diet or just a high protein diet or just something, you're going to have some of the other deficiency, and that's the same thing with life.
Exactly.
You have to evolve and you have to be a holistic leader. You have to be a conscious leader where you balance soft skills with the hard skills of leadership. You have a growth mindset, but you also appreciate the slow growth. Yes, you are ambition, but you still have empathy towards your team. Yes,
and take people with you.
So you want to guide people, you want to lead, but you also want to create leaders, because your legacy is going to be known through the leaders that you leave behind.
Exactly.
And it's going to carry on and so on and so forth. So I think it's all about that well-rounded, and I think the word is balance. A lot of us, absolutely forget what the right balance of things are. And we feel, hey, let's get in touch with our spiritual side. Let's be on a practical side. And which is why I think what the beauty of the book for me was, while you've shared and you've been very, very vulnerable, Reen, in your book, because there's obviously a lot of honesty, a lot of heart, and I think it takes a very secure person to tell the world out there, that, hey, this is the shit that I have been through. These are all the skeletons in my closet.
Not even written all about the shit, because there's so much more.
But these are
this
the skeletons in my closet. And guess what? I own it, and I've overcome this. And if I can do it, so can everybody else.
Something which you just triggered something in my mind. I remember there was a trainer when I was at JM Financial. There was a trainer where we used to do many programs through him. His name was Hemu Karkir. I mentioned him in my book somewhere. Right. So Hemu was, at that time, my son was going through the adolescent phase and something like that. And he was a little bit acting out and stuff like that. So I was just discussing it, and I was the HR person. So I used to arrange those training programs and stuff like that. I used to also head the learning and development for GM at that point of time. So I went to Hemu and we were just discussing. I said, oh, aise hai, ye hai, this is what is happening. He said, okay, get your son and I will, let me see what I can do and stuff like that. And I remember we sitting in the Infinity Mall at Goregaon Malad somewhere, visiting in the Infinity Mall, Infinity 2. And we're sitting in the food court. And he's talking to my son. He said, okay, you go for a walk and stuff like that. I'll talk to your son and something. And after half an hour, he calls me back and he says, yeah, your son is fine. He's perfectly all right and stuff. And something that I say, and I have tears coming in my eyes. Like but this is what I'm behaving, And then he's looking at me and then he tells my son, take 200 for mom, go enjoy yourself. She needs this more than you
do, yeah. Because I think we tend to project so much of our baggage, our viewpoint of things. It's always our viewpoint or rather our point of view that we bring into a conversation.
Correct.
We do not give the opposite person the space to be themselves because we already are projecting our insecurities,
so much.
our thoughts, our baggages is what we bring to the table. And which is why I think great leadership today right now and the whole evolvement piece is knowing what your baggage is, what you bring to the table, when to drop that baggage.
The layers, the onion layers, I
put
love
a pin in it.
Yeah.
When to put a pin in it.
Correct.
Be in that situation, respond to a situation. Because see, a reaction...
Not react.
A reaction will always stem from your perception or the way you're viewing things.
Right.
But a response will always stem after you have taken what you've received, sat with it, understood it without any biases, and that's when you respond to something.
Correct.
And I think that is the biggest difference.
So I'll tell you what, this is something which I've maybe said earlier as well. So there was my clients come back to me after we've done the session and we have a 6-month program and we take them through it, and 6 months that their lives completely changed. So after like 5-6 months after they finished the entire course, I kind of get in touch with them and I said, okay, what's happening with you? And I'm always available. So these are the people whom I am very proud of them, by the way, and they also share their their stories with me and their achievements. So this one person comes back to me and he says that, I am still faced with stress. Okay. So I told him, I said, the stress that is there, all right, are you able to handle it? And he's like, yeah, I can handle it. I'm just telling you that I have to work hard. Something keeps coming up and I'm handling it. So I asked him, I said, earlier, you used to get anxiety. Earlier, you used to get panic attacks. You used to start stammering. Earlier, you used to kind of go into complete meltdown mode. Is that happening again? No, that is not happening, but stress is there. So then I kind of had to explain to him, and I told him, I said, stress is, so if you imagine you're in an obstacle course, okay? Now you can see a hurdle, okay? This is something I have to go over, something I have to go under. That's always going to be there. Stress, because we are working.
It's how we navigate it, how we learn to navigate it.
Yeah, but you can see it. You can see something coming up and you handle it. See something coming up, you handle it. What is really required is what derails us is the landmines which are there underneath. Alright, and I think somewhere I would like people to understand that if something is derailing you, you have a landmine, and evolvement is required here. You cannot, there is a lava which is flowing underneath. You cannot paper onto it, put band-aids and say, okay, no, I will not think about it. I am not going to focus on that. Oh, don't get me started. That's like that one area which I'm not going to focus on. That will never get you to your
It's like, sweeping
level.
shit under the carpet.
Completely. And there's a lava which is going to
accumulate it and it's going to stink.
Yeah, and when you're going to walk on those landmine ridden roads, it's going to like something is going to blow up and you're not, and then you say, I don't know what happened to me. I don't know why I reacted. Because even a small event like
affects,
this used to happen to me, by the way. So I had so much of pent up anger inside me, so much hurt, everything. Believe me, it used to show through. I started, okay, so my anger levels used to be like, you have not seen me at my anger levels, by the way. My family used to get scared of me, okay, because obviously a very hectic job, whatever. Anger was like, yahan pe tha. And now some big thing also happens and I'm not angry.
Hard relate to that.
I'm not angry. I'm like, okay, ho gaya, koi baat nahi. Let's see what we can do. But it has taken me years of my own evolvement, by the way. So this something, what I realized was slowly anger was going away. I was no longer angry at my team. I was no longer angry at certain circumstances. One area I used to be angry, customer service. Those people who call you for selling you stuff.
And they're just doing their job.
Yeah, and suddenly, like, even if one mobile bill has come extra, I'll be like blasting them on the phone, sending stinkers. You know how you're in a leadership mode completely. Yeah. Stinker drafting. I am very good at drafting stinkers, by the way. I love drafting stinkers.
I want to tell you something that just happened, okay? I celebrated my birthday last week.
Okay.
And I have a dog and I wanted to surprise my dog also. So I had ordered 4 cupcakes for him. Okay, and unfortunately the cupcakes were dispatched in the morning, but I never received them. So it's 6 p.m. and my doggy's cupcakes have not come. So I called up the person I know, the bakery I know, and I said, "Hi, where are the cupcakes for my dog?" And she, poor thing, panicked and she said, "Oh my God, you haven't received them. I dispatched them at 10 in the morning."
Oh my God.
And it's 6 in the evening. And she's like, "Now, the guy comes, don't take it, I was like, obviously I won't take them now because they've been out in the sun, but
it's like for you ordered them.
I hope that guy is fine, the rider is fine. And she felt so bad and she's like, my kitchen is about to shut down, but I'll make everybody wait and I'll make you a fresh batch and you'll have it in an hour and a half or so. And I felt so bad for her and I was like, you know what, why don't you do one thing? If you have anything ready, just send out whatever you have ready. And she, poor thing, felt so bad, and my go-to reaction by then would have been like, "What the hell? You have taken money for this, and now it's my birthday, and I have now cupcakes to give my dog." That girl, just because I probably thought of the human first, she has sent, I think, what I had ordered, something way sweeter than that, because it actually came there with saying, "Happy birthday to my favorite human."
Oh,
so it was
lovely.
Obviously cupcakes for my dog, but they were complimenting me.
Right.
And I think that was such a beautiful moment for me, because my go-to reaction would have been to yell bloody murder and put the fear of God in her. But I don't know what happened. Probably evolvement happened, where it was just like, hey, I just hope the rider's fine. He's been out since
and even my book launch, you were there. So the book launch, imagine the final people, there were 5 people on stage.
Correct.
Who were unveiling the book, and there were, there was photographs and photographer present and everything. And finally the photos did not come.
Yeah, I know. I think I was more shocked about that than you were.
Videos did not come. And I'm like, I felt bad. I felt bad. Yeah, I would have liked those photos and videos to come. But what can you do? And actually I'm looking at myself like, do I recognize myself? What's wrong with me? And I was like,
so beautiful, no? And
I actually felt, and because you know what, I think I can appreciate it more, because I have been that person who used to even yell at a customer service ke 200 rupees bill kyun badhaya.
Correct.
So this was for me somewhere very weird. And even till last year I have had vendors, because see, so many, I think one thing which I will tell you, which I definitely believe which happened with me. In my job, I thought I have achieved it. I have evolved. I have really attained a lot. When you become an entrepreneur, okay, when now there is no fixed salary coming, there is no forced discipline of getting up in the morning.
It takes a lot more discipline to move.
Okay, there is, and now you're doing everything on your own. And I don't have a team now. Okay, I had a team under me, boss. Khud karna hai, and you're responsible for yourself. You have to look after your own health. You have to look after now your house also, because now earlier we were outsourcing everything. Believe me, I think the amount of hidden layers which came out for me last year and even till this year, this year, I think even in May, June, things were coming out for me. And I realized, I said, bloody hell, where is this coming from? I thought I had evolved.
I think it's a lifelong process of learning and unlearning. When we started Semeion, right, we were like, hey, we're poised for this. 20 years of branding, marketing. We worked with some of the biggest brands, right? You name it, and we worked with that brand. So we're set for this. We know exactly what we're doing.
Right.
But each day is such a beautiful experience of learning and unlearning, because we're getting to actually partner brands in their success. Watching you at your unveiling, where you had completely owned the brand value proposition that we had defined for you in itself. I think was way better than seeing any campaign of ours going live, on mass media, because it was like, hey, this is making a difference. This was what we set out to do. This was our purpose, And I think you just made our day. You just made our day. We had come to support you for your unveiling, but you ended up giving us the most satisfying gift a new business could take back, which is, hey, you know what, we've started off and we're doing the right thing, and this is exactly the difference we wanted to make. Where you are clear with what you have to say, you are proud of what we worked out for you, and you're owning it and taking it forward. And I think that is where the whole evolvement journey and partnership. And obviously it was a lot of fun to also discover that while we spoke for the book, you have so much more going on. You have your mentoring going on, you have your podcast, obviously, that you have the community, I think, which you're reviving
the
again,
Evolvement community.
So I think
it's the Evolvement. So we are now a little bit rebranding it, because so earlier was the Evolvement community. Now we're calling it the Evolvement Achievers Club.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I think you will appreciate that.
I do, absolutely, because then, see, there are all sorts of people, right? Now we're telling people to embrace their differences.
The meeting took place on the 20th of October, and one of the persons, he had come to the Evolvement community through Book My Show. Okay, so this guy is actually based in Sambhaji Nagar, which is, I think, the earlier Aurangabad, and he came. And he was like, okay, what do you all discuss? And I was free. I was in Bombay for a few days, Mumbai, so let me just attend. And we went through it, and we did the success point, and we spoke about money and the vibrations, and we spoke about a lot of stuff, and we actually spoke about how he can have a better vision for himself and stuff. We did all that, and he's saying, why have you all just shown it as a spiritual club? He's like, this is so much more. I need to come here, and I need to attend this. That was his words. And I was like, he says, please change the branding. So, I mean, he's standing next to the standee, and he's saying, change the branding. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. I think that's an excellent feedback. So that's why now, yesterday we are like, okay, this is going to be the Evolvement Achievers Club.
Fantastic. And see, that's because the framework and the guardrails were in place.
Yes.
And I think that is the beauty of it, right? There are people who are avid readers. They can reach out for their book and your book and read it in time. There are people who love vibing and interacting with people. Probably they can attend the community. There are people who like to just consume content on the go, and they could probably listen to your podcast. So there is various ways for people to connect, and I think you found your purpose, you found your voice, and you're just making sure that you are there in every possible stream and avenue that a person needs to reach out and evolve. And of course, for the ones who are really, really shy, there is the one-to-one mentoring also.
No, I'll tell you what, for me the one-to-one mentoring is the most satisfying. I'll tell you why. I took 10 to 12 years to really reach into this thing. And I take people through this in 6 months. Within, in 6 months, within the 6-month period, they're already definitely achievers.
It's like their golden ticket to evolvement.
Definitely, and believe me, within 1 or 2 years, after that, they have now started, their career graph has shown that leap, and believe me, so I have had this one guy who is he's a singer and a musician. And when he came to me, he's like, he's saying, I can't talk to people. and he wanted to be a stage performer.
That's exactly what I was thinking in my
yeah,
head. Yeah,
you know, and believe me, like we finished his sessions last year in October. That guy has already made a mark on himself on Instagram now. He's taken some probably photographs, he's creating, I mean, I can't open my Instagram without seeing
content from him.
content
Nice.
from him. And this guy is like now achieving, and he's
See,
like,
it's so satisfying, right?
Yeah.
When you see your work,
Huh.
okay, being actually imbibed. And I don't want to say just use the loose word of recognition, but
Right.
actually imbibed and make a difference. And I think
Huh.
that is the most important piece, right?
Correct.
Finding your purpose, owning it, and then having the right narrative, and then taking that forward. And I think
and creating, you know, people around have to like embrace this. I even see my ex-colleagues, you know, and they're still in those jobs, and I'm like, why?
I think it's fine. It's fine as long
But
as
they
they're
keep
happy.
complaining.
See, that's the only
You can't
thing.
keep complaining about something and then expect things to get
Right.
better.
Either you change yourself or you change the situation.
Yeah, so I think evolvement is something that definitely people have to evolve, and they have to really kind of embrace that and choose evolvement. You kind of like choose to evolve, and I think that is something. So obviously, book 2 and book 3 are also going to come, and hopefully, now I started writing the book 2 now. It's already
Yes, please tell
my
me.
notes are ready.
I get first view. I would love to view.
So
read
notes
that
are already
also.
ready, but yeah, now at least the writing
Fantastic.
process has started again. So now I'm like pretty
Fantastic.
excited there, and I want this to be.
You're like a
This
very
is my. I think this is my kind of gift to everyone.
Like a very old Neil Donald Walsh, you know, Conversations with God.
Literally, you know,
I read it when I was 15, I think.
yeah, and you know, when I thought about a trilogy, his Conversation with God was the first thing which came to my mind. I said he has those 3 books as a trilogy, you know, and I want to create that trilogy for people, and I also want to do this as an Indian author. See, we are only looking at the West because things go from here to the West and they come back in a
They get accepted and acknowledged
and you know,
and,
yeah, kind of a
repackaged.
thing. And I was like, no, I'm a very proud Indian. Our legacy is showing India to the world. So this is something that was, I guess, so.
Obviously wish you success, and
Thank you.
And I know what your end vision is, so looking forward to that and seeing you
Thank
achieve
you.
things and be the cheerleader on the side.
I think this is like, we had such an explosive. I think our similar background has, I think, kind of spoken also through us.
Yeah,
And
I think when you have two people who've been through like different kind of evolution journeys, you know,
Huh.
it just happens like very, very organically. I don't think we spoke about Neil Donald Walsh ever. And I've read that
Huh.
book when I was 14, which is like eons ago.
Yeah.
And now suddenly it was like, oh shit, damn, yeah, she's like a very own Neil Donald Walsh conversation with
I
God.
loved his books, you know. So I've read all the 3 parts. I've read the 4th one, Communion with God, Communication with God, and you know, all those parts. I think I own all those books, so that there must
I'm
be
sure-
somewhere in my
I'm
library.
sure you
And
do.
I have huge libraries. I mean, I have huge books. The collections are like.
But that shows, right? Only an avid reader and a book lover
Huh.
would probably talk about other authors who are trying to promote their own book. And I think that's true to the love of
Huh.
the art form. You know?
Yeah, so I think this
more
is.
than
I think
anything
a good note. We can talk for ages.
Yeah, we'll continue our chat, I think, after this. Let's do that.
So I think, I'll tell you what, definitely we're going to be having other topics, and I'll definitely want you there, Sabah, for that.
Definitely, anytime.
Guys, this is like, Sabah is like a kindred soul now. She's like a soul sister. So definitely we will have more conversations, and I hope you like this conversation. If you like this conversation, please do subscribe to my channel. And also, guys, please choose your own evolvement. Choose your evolvement. Don't complain, evolve. Thank you so much.